Ní bhhain náir dian wadarang actanuk, Macburian wadarang bagaruk, Manamith mirabea, Nilinga wadarang bake, Karangarabo bunjo the ego, Wa the crow, Kimbani ba Diane Gilson. Welcome to Wadarang Country.
Live from Wadarang Country, welcome to Lance TV. Coming to you from the palatial new Camp Street Studios in Ballarat, get ready to laugh, think, love and sparkle. And now, it's time to turn that camp dial all the way up to fabulous. Here's your host, the multi-award-winning Lance-tastic, Lance DePoyle.
Welcome to the show. I'm Lance DePoyle. You're watching Lance TV, coming to you live from Wadarang Country here in Ballarat, the resting place of Bunjili Eagle, and I'm dizzy. Pull up a drink and take a sip of your nearest chair, and let's sit together. Oh, what a week it's been. What a week it's been. Sorry for those who tuned in last week and saw a rerun. Last week was totally a situation out of everybody's control, and that's all I've got to say about that. You can use your own imagination as to why. Maybe the aliens came, I don't know. Maybe there was an outage, maybe something fell on someone's head, I don't know. But you tell me. I tell you what else is happening too. As we look around to the other side of the planet and look to see what's happening in the US, some very interesting things are starting to occur. There is a wonderful human being by the name of Kamala. I knew I wasn't going to get Kamala Harris. Can we get the slide, please, Soph? Yes! Such a wonderful human being, and there's part of me that thinks that Kamala is taking, well, I think the United States are really in a place where they're looking for kindness, and Kamala is actually really putting that to the fore. And I thought about it today, and I just started to think, it's nice to see that somebody's taken a leaf out of the book of Jacinda Ardern, who was the New Zealand Prime Minister for a number of years, who also led the country with kindness and goodness. So it's exciting days indeed. She has definitely been giving the Big Orange a run for their money. And it has really been so far quite interesting. Who was the other person? JD, whatever, the running mate for the Great Orange is like. So, that's what I wanted to say. If there are any single cat ladies out there, welcome to the show. Thank you for your service. That's all I've got to say on that. Talking about all things absolutely wonderful, we have another wonderful show for you tonight. And without further ado, I would like to make it even more wonderful by bringing on our very special guest tonight. Please be upstanding for Dr. Robert Reid. Darling.
Hello.
Oh, look at you. Mwah. Mwah. Darling, who are you wearing?
Mostly the slow decay of time.
Fantastic. Did you just write that?
Yes, I did.
You're looking impeccable. I love what you've done with your hair.
Thanks. I've done very little with it other than wake up and push my hands through it.
Fantastic. Yeah, you and me both, right?
Yours is much more glorious than mine is.
Oh, I didn't want to be the one to say, but thank you.
Everyone's saying.
You are a bit of a thespian, aren't you?
You could say that.
I did. I already just did.
I would hesitate to follow.
But you are best known for being a rampant thespian, in fact.
I guess so, if by best known you mean not really very well known at all. But yes, so thespian. For anyone who may not already be aware, thespian means like actor, etc. Obviously.
Oh.
You want to know the story of Thespis?
I would love to hear
I can totally do the story of Thespis. It's about 2,500
in 1 minute or
years.
less.
In 1 minute or less, okay. 2,500 years ago, Greek theatre used to be mostly just the chorus, except in one particular show where one guy took it upon himself to step out of the chorus and say, I'll be an actual character. And that guy was the actor named Thespis, and that's where we get the name thespian from.
Oh. His last name was an upstage, was it?
Might have been. Might have been. Traditionally very Greek name.
Yeah. Thespian, ham, upstager.
Upstagers.
Hyphenated.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you for being on the show tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being had. We also know you locally, probably more recently too, as the artistic director for the Festival of Australian Queer Theatre.
Yes, that is right. You want me to tell you about what the festival is at that point?
No. I said we only had a little minute. But look, welcome to the show, Dr. Rob. Shall I call you Rob or Dr. Rob?
Dr. Rob's fine.
Fantastic. Dr. Rob it is. So thank you so much for being on the show. Mm-hmm. We have a little pre-recorded segment that we're going to go to now, and that's called Lance TV's Artistic Corner. Artist Corner. It's been put together by our very own Dr. Sophie, and it goes a little something like this. When we come back, we'll have a wonderful little interview with Dr. Rob. See you in a minute.
My name's Tegan. I'm an artist, a zine maker and a creative person, I suppose, and I own the workshoppery here at Berkeley Square. It's my art studio, but it's also a space where I run workshops, painting classes. Other people borrow the space to use or rent the space for their own workshops. So yeah, it's kind of a creative hub, I suppose. When I made the decision to spend a little bit more time on my art, I put it out there into the universe that I wanted a space rather than my spare room. And I spoke with Kelsey White, who was on the Evolve committee, and asked if maybe I would be eligible for a space from Evolve. And just by the by, she happened to say, well, I'm actually leaving my studio because she was going off to do other things, and it's available, would you like to take over the lease? And I jumped at that opportunity. I'm mostly a painter, but I really enjoy collage, so I'd suggest that I'm a multidiscipline artist, painting, collage, and drawing and illustration as well. At the moment, I've got really into collage using vintage magazines and books. But I always sort of venture out of my comfort zone and then head back into doing painting again. So these are some of my collages from my recent exhibition here at Berkeley Square. It was called Snip, 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 Snip. All of these collages were made using pieces of vintage magazines, books, old knitting patterns. So this picture here and that one, I've tried or experimented with combining paint with collage, so both of my mediums together, simplifying the collage a little bit but adding the texture and the colour that you see in my painting sort of to bridge that gap. So these paintings were leftover pieces from an exhibition I held last year called Kitchenette, and those paintings were all inspired by the floral patterns found on vintage kitchenware, something that you might find in like your nana's kitchen, which is a massive inspiration to a lot of my work. So this one you can probably see was a cup that I found and then painted, and at the opening of the exhibition I had all of the vintage kitchenware or the retro kitchenware holding all the snacks for the exhibition, so it was kind of like an immersive experience. So these were all based on those patterns, and it's really nice to see when people come in and occasionally they go, oh, I remember that, we had that on a biscuit tin, or we used to have that on a flour sifter. So really that sense of nostalgia really sinks quite deeply when people view the work, or they just see a pretty picture, which is also fun. So these are some of my zines. Mostly they're just about, I guess, special interests that I have. For example, I collect vintage swans, which is I don't know, it's just what I do. And so this is a zine purely about my vintage swan collection and stories around how I got them. I also like to be a bit silly. This is probably one of the silliest and stupidest zines I've made, but it's highly popular. Maybe it was exposure therapy for me because I hate foods that are mixed. And this is all recipes from the 70s of hideous foods, which is called gross foods. Look at that. Ugh, it's so gross. It makes me spew in my mouth. So definitely follow me on Instagram, which is tegan.crosbie.art. And I've also got a website, which is where you can purchase tickets for my workshops. There's currently nothing running in the near future, but I'll be uploading some. I guess COVID made the decision a bit clearer for me in that I was spending more time at home painting, and I rediscovered my love for that and how important it is to me as a person. So if I was to give some advice to others, it would be to follow that passion. It might not be a huge moneymaker, it might not need to be a moneymaker, but it's something that if it's something that runs really deep within you, then I think you should embrace it and continue on with that.
If you're interested in participating, email us at lance.artist.corner@gmail.com.
Hello, everybody on Facebook. I've just grabbed my phone to say hello to Kim Waller and to Melissa Williams. Hello, you're both watching. If you are watching us and you'd like to ask a question to Dr. Rob, pop it in the thread. That's Dr. Rob there. There's me again. Dr. Rob. Me. I tell you what. Festival Australian Queer Theatre is coming up. We have a short little video for you, and it is Frankie Van Can's Body at Work. Have a look at this. There we go. So if that doesn't incite you to buy a ticket, I don't know what will.
All right.
Fantastic. Look, we're still on Facebook right now. We might play that a little bit later at the other end of the show as well, because that's quite a good little bite there.
Yeah, it's going to be an amazing show, really. Everyone was talking about it a couple of months ago, and it was on in Melbourne.
Heaven. Mm-hmm. I love it when they talk about it. So if we're still on Facebook, oh, good. That's a long 2.5 minutes, everyone. 10 seconds? No. So it's just like, whatever. No. Yeah, but if you've got a question for Dr. Rob, just pop it in the thread, Lance TV Ballarat on Facebook. It'd be great.
I'm not guaranteeing I'm going to be able to answer it.
Welcome back. You're watching Let's TV. I am Lance Boyle, and I am sitting here with Dr. Robert Reid.
Thank you, one person.
Hooray for the audience. Round of applause for the audience. We are at the point, Dr. Rob, where we're going to start the interview.
Excellent.
Are you ready?
Yes, indeed.
Oh, I love consent. Dr. Rob, we've been doing the show 7 years, and we've always started with this question. Where were you born?
So I have a question in return. I was born in a hospital that is not where I grew up or anything like that. But I was there for all of, a day or two? Does that count?
It does count.
Then Carlton.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Where were you raised?
Heidelberg.
Oh, that's a nice side of town.
Yeah, it is. It's one of the few places with any kind of history and any kind of art history in the last sort of 200 years of Australian colonisation.
That's not where the Heidelberg School came from.
It is where the Heidelberg School
Look
came
at
from.
me pretending to know that I didn't know. No.
Yes, indeed. Heidelberg School, it's where the Ned Kelly film was shot, up around Eaglemont in that area.
Oh, with Mick Jagger?
No,
Not
before
that
that,
one?
yeah. The first
Oh,
one,
the
which was...
early, the real one.
Yeah, like the first film ever shot in Australia, possibly one
Like
of the first ones in the world.
The silent film version.
Yeah, it was shot in
right.
Heidelberg. And also the Angry Penguins out there as well, the sort of 60s movement out in Bellini area. So like I say, one of the few places that has a kind of consistent history and arts history. Not that that has any kind of bearing on anything. Really.
No, but you know, if it's in the water and everyone's drinking the water.
It's certainly easy to see. You like to walk around, you can see why they were painting out there. And
Yeah.
it still looks like those paintings, the Impressionist paintings, it still looks like that.
Yeah, I had an aunt who lived in Diamond Creek, which is kind of just up around the corner, so I actually understand where you're at. Oh, that reminds me, it was my father's birthday today. He would have been 98.
Yeah, right.
Hi, Stan. With that in mind, though, and you talk about Heidelberg being that creative area, your household was relatively creative. Your father was a musician.
That's true. It was a small household. It was me, my mother, and him. And I would not describe my mother as having a great deal of creative energy. But yeah, Dad was a musician. Not by the time I had come on the scene. I think he'd stopped by the time I'd been born, or he was towards the very end of that. There's all kinds of chaos in the studio tonight. It's packed out because I'm here, you see, that's why.
That's right.
I've drawn my audience here. My giant one audience.
The Audient.
That's right. I wonder about Audient. I wonder if Audient is an actual thing, right? Because an audience can still be one person. You can still have an audience with a single person.
Really?
Like, yeah, you have an audience with the Queen, that's just the one person. So
But who's the audience?
the
with
Queen
the
is in that instance.
Does the Queen become your audience?
Kind of, yeah. You have a meeting with her. You have an audience with the Queen, and in that sense, you have even if you've got the one person.
But
in the
if you're an
audience,
audience with her, aren't you both the audience?
you might. I don't know. I guess it depends on who's doing the watching.
Yeah, right. Oh, that puts a third person in the room.
Sort of.
So, but your father was a musician,
Yes,
and
yes.
your mother smelled of elderberries. But you said your great uncle
was an actor of sorts. I shouldn't say of sorts. I said that earlier as well. I shouldn't say of sorts. He was an actor.
Consistency is key.
Yeah, it shows that I've rehearsed it, right? Yeah, he was on a couple of TV shows in like the 80s, kids TV shows, I think, as a bit player, and did a lot of stage work in kind of musicals and things like that in the 80s and the 90s. I didn't have a great deal of connection with either of their creative processes, I think, or practices. I think they had either largely ended by the time I started becoming interested in it. But I guess there was certainly, there was an organ in the house which I could sit down and learn to play because Dad had an organ. So, yeah.
Amazing. You also, in high school, you engaged in the high school productions?
That's right, yes. I went to Banyule High School, and that was, it had a theatre. It had a proper little, probably 250-seater theatre now that I think about it, a thrust stage and a kind of really lovely raked audience. Beautiful little theatre, which is one of the things about, I don't know about the rest of the world or anything, but certainly Australia, certainly Victoria, the schools have amazing resources, have beautiful, well-appointed theatres that get used for school assemblies and the occasional end-of-year concert. And much better than any of the professional theatre makers are tending to work with. All the kind of tiny little black box theatres and cabaret and club circuit. Not that there's anything wrong with them, but these beautiful, big, well-appointed theatres are just sitting there going empty out in the suburbs. We had one of those at my high school and a drama course. We used to do shows, like you'd get the drama kids would do the shows and we'd have the end-of-year production and things like that, of course, which I was in. But it still sat there a lot, so I started my first theatre company out of that space.
Did you?
I did, yes. Me, a handful of the others from the school, handful of the older youth drama kids from the local Heidelberg Youth Theatre Company, because it was sort of like a handful of us were 16, 17, and the others were all like 10, 11. And so the school and us and sort of got together and made it a kind of community resource with a youth theatre company working out of it, because this was at the point when all the schools were closing in the 90s, and ours was one of the schools that was closing. So we were part of keeping that resource alive in the community by starting a little youth theatre company out of it. Yeah.
That's amazing. From that motion though, from that excitement of, establishing essentially a theatre company, you went on to La Trobe University, you got your Bachelor of Arts.
I did, yes.
You also popped over to VCA, Victorian College of the Arts.
Yes, I did the directing course there for my sins.
And then you was at Queensland University.
And I did my Masters at QUT.
And you did a Masters there.
Yep.
You hold a PhD in?
Australian Theatre History.
Wow, look at you go. It's as though you enjoy it.
Look, someone had to do it, and no one else was going to. So, a lot of the PhD was a bit about trying to understand what had happened to me and my cohort, like the guys that I came through independent theatre with in the early days of the early 2000s, that sort of era. Everybody gets to make theatre and makes their companies, etc., and we make stuff for about 7 or 8 years, and then they kind of disappear, and there's all these new people, and I'm at the end of it going, what happened? Where did everybody go? What? And so I sort of did...
Exit stage left.
Yeah, right. Exit stage professional gig or have family. And I was kind of left going, what happened? Which is why I sort of went, okay, well, I'll do a kind of historical look back over that period, which was only really a 10-year period. And doing that, I was like, I don't know what happened beforehand. What happened in the 90s? What happened in the 80s? Australian theatre doesn't tell its own story very well, its history very well, if at all, really, which is a shame because it's a great story, lots of great stories in it. And so, the PhD became about trying to unearth all of that kind of stuff, what had happened in the last sort of 30 or 40 years, and it kept growing from there. And now I'm kind of an expert in theatre history here in this country that no one seems to care about other than me. The history, not the country. Lots of people pretend to care about the country.
Ba-dum-ching. On that, we might go for a short break.
I've already made it too controversial.
No, not controversial enough. You're not trying hard enough. Look, Dr. Rob just looked at me with a, is it going to be like that, is it? Okay.
If I was younger.
Yeah. I get that all the time. We're going to go for a short break, and when we come back, we will unfold some more of the lovely Dr. Rob right after this. Rick Yusuf is watching. Matthew Gardner is watching. Hello, lovelies. If you've got a question for Dr. Rob, do drop it in the thread. Let me know, and I will ask Dr. Rob your question. Let us know you're out there. That'd be very exciting. Your face really was sort of went, yeah, right, you want controversy, do you? I can do controversy.
I mean, I can, but that'll end any involvement of mine up here doing anything. No, I think the old days I would have said, like the Sex Pistols, right? That makes you Bill Grundy, I think. Was his name? Bill something in the 70s where him and the Sex Pistols were sitting here and he went, go on, say something offensive.
Oh, yes, I do remember that. And right.
Yeah, I don't know what the rules are on swearing on Channel 31.
No, you're good.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, we're on in the adult time.
So, excellent.
Yeah, so you can say it now or you can wait till we're on TV.
I feel like it'll be out of context if I wait till it's on TV.
Which would even be funnier. It'd be very Eugene Ionesco for the viewers.
It would be strange just sitting there just going, what a filthy fucker. What a fucking rotter. Why is he suddenly, why is that?
Right.
What? Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be great. Absurdist theatre, right? Coming to your home direct from Lance TV.
I can't think what the play might have been. There's a play called Offending the Audience. It'd be that, right? Terrible play. Very gimmicky. 90 minutes of the actors come out and say the most offensive things that the playwright in the 1930s could think of. And I've seen a version of it done, I think, in the 90s, but they didn't update it or anything. So they came out and it's all these...
Very twee words.
Yeah, man. So like, you're all rotters. You all smell bad, etc.
Oh,
like,
she showed me her ankle.
yeah, very. Like just so, and like it's supposed to be. And I guess at the time you could understand and go, all right, sure. Like they come out and they just offend the audience. They do what it says on the tin. But time has passed, and it is now.
Didn't they return to that though a little bit in the 70s with, all those happenings and stuff and just...
Oh, happenings. Happenings are actually... Happenings get a bad rap, I think. Happenings are a kind of interesting idea, which is... This is Alan Capro, right, was the guy who sort of came up with happenings.
Hello, welcome back to Let's TV. I am Lance Boyle, and Dr. Rob is still Dr. Rob.
Only vaguely, though. I was in the middle of a lecture. We were about to get started on Alan Capro and happenings, but I feel like we have to do real things now.
No, that's right. With that being said, in the early 2000s, you had wrapped up, you'd done all the study that you wanted to do.
Not even close,
and
but
you
yeah.
You'd put together an outfit called Theatre in Decay.
That is correct.
Tell
yes.
us about Theatre in Decay.
Theatre in Decay was my first independent theatre company. It was a really early company of part of the post-2000s independent theatre boom in Melbourne. Melbourne had been through, in fact, Australia had been through quite a sort of slump in the 90s with independent theatre. And so my company and a new venue called The Storeroom, a range of other companies, artists like Lally Katz, Angus Serini, Chris Conn, Chris Bendel, were all making theatre around the same time. Red Stitch opened up around the same time. And Theatre in Decay was my kind of company, which we did a sort of punk, queer, political, horror, comedy, satirical theatre company. We made stuff we made all our props and costumes out of garbage, like often literally garbage that we would find, and then spray paint and then make the poor actors wear. It was all kind of very early 2000s kind of rotted gothic Rob Zombie kind of look stuff.
Rob Zombie, I understand.
Okay, good.
Yeah, got it. There was one production in particular that you'd put on, all dressed up and no one to blow.
Yes, indeed.
Tell us about that.
It was a fringe show. It was our first or second. It was our second fringe show, I think. And it was, you're pushing me to remember it now, it's about 22 years ago now. It was set in a kind of nightmare Luna Park that psycho killer clowns, vampire psycho killer clowns had taken over at night and were... there was a kind of power play between the leader of the gang and his second in command. So it was a kind of Julius Caesar-y, kind of King Leary kind of narrative, but it was all of the worst stuff I could think of, right? There was a scene where we had an old dying dog rotting on stage that was torn apart and I think maybe fucked to death by the clowns. It was that kind of show.
That's a very Greenaway moment.
Yeah, except we were making it out of junk, so it looked a lot less beautiful.
Fair call.
But yeah, and it was, I mean, realistically, it was an exercise in trying to shock and provoke an audience. And a bit because I think I've always struggled with the fourth wall, the notion that the audience is not there. Because they patently are there, they're making noise, hopefully, and if nothing else, there's a real important difference between live performance and pre-recorded. A lot of people think theatre and film and TV are the same thing, and film and TV is just the apogee of the theatre person's kind of craft, because you get to be famous and you get money of sorts. But they're very, very, very different kind of practices, because everything that happens on a screen you kind of witness from afar. It's not happening really, it's a representation. live performance, live theatre, it's physically happening in front of you. So the actors' bodies are physically going through kinds of stress, heartbeats are raising, all of the kind of processes of emoting are happening. So you out in the audience are having a physical response. You can't not have a physical response. When we see a human being in stress, our autonomic responses, our mirror neurons all kick off. And so the manipulation of that kind of experience in the room, I think, only happens live. And so a lot of Theatre and Decay was about trying to provoke that by poking people in the eye. My work has gotten less bluntly aggressive as I've gotten older, but probably only because I've gotten older.
I like you looking at me going, what do you
That's
think?
it. I've reached the end of that.
From that, so Theatre and Decay was a 7-year project.
Yeah, talk about that.
A few other little bits and pieces in between. You've ended up at one point, you've written a few pieces for the Melbourne Theatre Company, MTC.
Yep, that's right. I wrote a play called The Joy of Text, which with any luck we might be doing a production of up in Ballarat next year.
Scoop, it's a scoop, I tell you.
It is, if it happens. If not, then it was just a lie.
It was an abstraction of natural gesture.
Yeah, that's right.
Nobody can tell me otherway.
So yeah, we did this play called The Joy of Text, and the following year I did another production called On the Production of Monsters. They were staged by the company in 2011, 2012. A very different kind of work, obviously, to the sort of stuff I was doing with Theatre and Decay, much less dog fucking in the MTC shows. But similar kind of still themes, what it is to be smart and not understood by your peers in high school. Production of Monsters is sort of about, well, it was inspired by the Bill Henson affair, actually. The furor over the photographs at the Rosalind Oxley 9 back in, God, when was that? Late 2000s, 2008, 2009? And the furor over pedophilic images and pornography and art that blew up, that got so far as to have the Prime Minister even going, oh, we should just let kids be kids, all of that sort of stuff. I was really interested in the knee-jerk reaction and suspicion of art.
Yeah, because that was a real, for Australia, that was a real pearl-clutching moment where we all went,
Yeah. And we fucking love those. We really do. They happen a bit. We don't give a fuck much for our art or our literature unless there's something a bit salacious, a bit surprising about it. Because also, what sort of inspired the previous MTC show, Joy of Text, was the Helen Demidenko hand the sign the paper, hand the rock the cradle, hand the sign the paper. I was inspired by that and the way that she'd faked that story, and so I have this school student fake a story in high school as a way of looking at the written word and authenticity. That's going to segue well into the festival. Yes,
fantastic. Not only do you create theatre, but you are also a game designer. And when we say game designer, we're not talking like beep, boop, 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 and controllers, are we?
No.
Tell us about Pop-Up Playground.
So Pop-Up Playground was the thing that I did after MTC. It was an immersive and participatory theatre company of sorts. What we did was we made events that had kind of narrative and spectacle, like you would see like a play or something, except it put you, the audience, in the centre of it where the actors would normally be. And that sounds like audience participation, but we do sort of the opposite of that, because what we would do is we would build rule sets and structures so that you understand what you're supposed to do, what your goals are, how you can contribute meaningfully to this event, and you can lose yourself in a constructed reality like you would in a computer game, like it's a 3D constructed reality that you can walk into and contribute to and affect the outcome of, but we do it with real people and with cardboard props and stuff like that, and we set it on the streets of the city.
Amazing. So it's kind of like a write your own play in real time.
Kinda, yeah. Although we were really interested in all kinds of manipulating of people's behaviour. So anything from kind of dance works we would sort of create by using the same kinds of rules you would use to make sport, a new sport. Reach here, grab this, chase after that, get it in the goal, all makes you move your body differently to the way you would normally. And so creating different rule sets creates these different physical relationships in space. And likewise, yeah, some of them are about narrative, and you end up in the play, and you end up... We did this one where we did for Bell Shakespeare, called True Romans All, which was, we took the first 3 acts of Julius Caesar and we mapped it onto the streets of Melbourne. So you as a player coming along to be part of the audience made decisions along the way, a bit choose your own adventure-y, and it's just sort of a bit immersive role-playing-ish, depending on how far you want to go. And you become part of the crowd on the day that Caesar is assassinated, and you can either stop it happening or become one of the conspirators. And one of the thing I loved about that was we did it for a schools group a couple of times. The kids, year 10 kids, come along, not studying Julius Caesar, not studying Shakespeare even, I think maybe, just doing it for Bell, came along, did the thing, and after 2 hours of playing the game, they know there was a guy called Julius Caesar, there was a guy called Brutus who tried to kill him in the center of Ballarat. They know all this stuff about this story from 2 hours of playing that they would never get for 100 hours of studying it in class.
Amazing.
So, yeah.
What an amazing outcome.
It was fun.
Speaking of fun, we need to go for a short ad break. When we come back, we're going to have some more Dr. Rob. See you after this. For those of you on Facebook, have a look at this short bit of footage. It is another act that will be happening during the Festival of Australian Queer Theatre, and they are called the Wholesome Hour, and the performance is Polite Mammals. Have a look.
Sometimes I just need to yell and scream and jump all around. Sometimes
Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Welcome back. You're watching Let's TV. We are in the third part of a 3-part interview with Dr. Rob Reid.
That's me. Well, that's me.
That's as far as, that's it. Thanks for coming.
Yep.
As we said at the top of the show, you are the artistic director for the Festival of Australian Queer Theatre.
Fact.
Fact. Fact. That's a fact.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, very clever.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the festival from your point of view.
So it is the first festival focused on Australian queer theatre, as far as I can see, or as far as I know. There have been other things, of course, like obviously queer theatre turns up in Midsummer, it turns up in Fringe, it turns up in
Mardi Gras,
all those kind of things, but there hasn't been anything that specifically focuses on queer theatre as a whole, as opposed to being part of something else. And so it's a weekend where I wanted it to be, I suppose.
Well, as the artistic director, it's however you want it to be.
I guess so. Yeah, I felt that it would be best to have it be more than just a collection of shows. So we have got some great shows, shows that have been on elsewhere, but also I wanted it to have an aspect of talking about what queer theatre is, getting the community to come together and talk amongst themselves, learn from each other, share wider as well, especially out here, kind of regional Victoria as well, bring kind of a bunch of skills out to here that they can share. So we've got internationally renowned performers coming here to either perform or run workshops and classes, or to talk about what the festival could be moving forward as well, what the community might need, what the industry might need. We've commissioned a new work I thought was a really important thing to do from the very beginning as well. And that's, I think, really exciting too. We have Dax Carney, who is a fantastic a trans woman, actor, playwright, and so she has written this brand new thing that's like a Tennessee Williams. It's like this beautiful, aching kind of country story of kind of loss and woe and desire. It's like a Streetcar Named Desire, but with a trans woman at the center of the thing, and it's treated beautifully and seriously, and there's no element of camp. It's just like a straight up tragic kind of romance story. It's beautiful. And
is that the one called Chasing Dick?
That is the one
love
called,
story.
That's the one, and that's the one joke in it. That's like that feels jokey, right? Like I'm like, yeah, that's jokey. And then you read it, because also Dax's stuff is kind of jokey, is kind of political, is kind of satirical. This, on the other hand, no man, it's like a gothic romance. Yeah.
Delicious.
Yeah, it's gonna be good.
Your role as artistic director, we hear the term bandied around everywhere. Oh, you're the artistic director of this. What does your role comprise of?
My role largely comprises of, well, for the most part, it largely comprises of knowing a bunch of people and being able to reach out to them and say, hey, we're doing this thing, can you come and do it with us? But beyond that, it's a bit about getting a sense of what the shape of the festival needs to be. Like the decision that I just described, right? Making a decision as to, it could just be about putting on new works and bringing new works here and making it purely about the presentation of work, or it could be more of an academic kind of thing, or more of a conversational, more participatory kind of festival. Making those kind of decisions based a bit on what the festival is, where it is in its development, what the community around it needs. Making those kind of decisions is what an artistic director does.
Amazing. So you kind of curate what is going to be in the input of the festival?
Yeah, pretty much. I guess not even pretty much, exactly. My job is to go, these things, I want these things. So it's a bunch of picking, right? Like it's a kid in a candy shop is kind of the job, which is a really great job as a festival director. As artistic director of a company is a little more stressful, because every decision you make impacts on the next thing you do, and the money is all down to you. This has been lovely. I can just turn up and go, I know these things and I've heard about these things. I didn't get to see any of these shows when they were on in Melbourne. All come here.
Fantastic. So it's all about you.
Well, like you said, I'm the artistic director.
Who is in the lineup?
So the lineup is, as you've seen, Polite Mammals by the Wholesome Hour, and Frankie Van Can's A Body at Work.
You got Dax?
Yep, Dax Carney's coming up, and we're doing a staged reading of Chasing Dick. Maud Davey, who directed the
Body at Work,
and also, I mean, is a renowned
I know, I gasped. I did my own little private little pearl clutch.
Yeah, right. Is coming up and doing a 3-hour masterclass.
Don't.
Followed by Moira Finucane coming up and doing exactly that.
Moira's coming to town, folks.
Yeah. And I'll say also, we're also super keen to bring Lola, the new cabaret musical performance extravaganza that Moira has done with Finucane Smith.
Lola Montez.
Yeah.
Very Ballarat.
Oh, very Ballarat. Commissioned up here originally, and of course...
But that's not this year, is it?
No, I want that for next year. So we need to get money. People who are out there watching, you can donate to us. We need the money so I can bring Lola Montez up here next year.
M. Chandler's part of
Yes.
the festival, and M is a local trans woman.
Yes, doing two things. M's got her master's play. She's doing a staged reading of Numa and Karl, which is a historical work about an early German ally, I guess. I won't go into the details of it because I don't know them well enough to not look a fool. And then who else are we? Oh, also doing some of her fairy tales. In a little showing on the Saturday morning. Jack Beebe is coming up here with 6 Inches Uncut.
6 Inches Uncut.
Yes.
Ooh, cows.
Doing some of their work as part of the conference, and we have a lot of people coming up to speak at the conference. A couple of people coming in over Zoom from Edinburgh who've taken their shows over to the festival.
Richard Watts.
Richard Watts is one of them.
OAM, Sir Richard Watts, no.
Yeah.
But Richard Watts is coming up, and is he going to be kind of guiding the conference? Yeah,
he'll be doing all the hosting, doing all the interviewing of the artists, and sort of, I guess, chairing the plenary session, panel discussion kind of thing, which I'm hoping will be a good chance for the industry and for everybody, the artists, not just the artists we brought up here, but there's a great opportunity, I'm hoping, for queer artists, not just in Ballarat either, but all in the kind of Western Victorian region, to come here and contribute to what this festival could be moving forward.
Yeah, and in the studio space here as well, we have Kerith Manderson Galvin in this space, bringing up
Perpetual Horror.
Perpetual Horror, that's right.
That's going to be probably the darkest, weirdest and queerest of the things that Kerith's going to love that I call it the queerest. Wonderful.
It's not a competition.
No, but if it was, Kerith would win. Wonderful, dark. You can tell from Perpetual Horror, it's a kind of exploration of body horror, 70s horror films, and Kerith's own kind of queer femme identity.
Amazing. And we've also got some play readings.
Yep.
John
Kachoyan is Australian playwriting and theatre history expert like myself. Ballarat is blessed to have two of us up here. We may be the only two left in the country. He has very generously agreed to work with some local actors to present scenes from classic works from the Australian canon of kind of queer theatre.
Michael Gall's Away is one of them.
Yeah, Away, A Hard God, whose name, the playwright now, I
does not come into my head
think
either.
of. Peter Kenner.
There you go.
Peter Kenner, I think so.
Always in the last place you look.
Who's gonna fact check me on that, honestly?
And Bengo's coming up.
Yes, going to be part of the conference. Fantastic theatre director down in Melbourne.
I think that's everyone, isn't it?
That's most of it.
Good, because you know what I want to do now?
What do you want to do?
I want to say thank you so much for being a guest on the show. But to do that, I need to give you this little tiny pride little bag.
Oh, I get merch.
You get merch. Ironically, you're going to get a Festival of Australian Queer Theatre volunteer handbook.
Excellent.
Because you just don't know. And
we need to talk about my contract if I'm a volunteer.
Your people, my people, not lunch. And of course, the framed photos of me saying I was on Let's TV.
Right, thank you so much.
There you go.
Shall I get off, or do you want me to stay
No,
here?
stay there.
All right.
We will, I mean, if you want to get off, but it is like there still could be children watching. We will take a short break, and when we come back, we will have the last throes of Lance TV right after this.
We hope you enjoyed our interview with Dr. Robert Reid. If you'd like to find out more about the Festival of Australian Queer Theatre, head over to the website at www.faqt.au. Lance TV will be back right after this.
And we're back on Facebook. I'm just going through the Fred, I was going to say. Hi, Fred. Matthew Gardner is watching. Rebecca H. Russell. We care, Robert. Let's hear more about that Melbourne scene.
What do you want to know?
Johnny Wombat. Hello, peoples. Johnny, the idea for Karen's restaurants. Not sure. It's something from before. Rebecca is back in there saying it was a great time in the early 2000s for Melbourne theatre.
That is certainly true.
Sam McCall has joined us, very keen for fact. My last hurrah at the BMI. Kristen Sheridan is watching. Hello, darling. I need to measure that area still. Rebecca, I've been asked to say hi, Lance, from Jude and Nate. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Hello, you two. We miss you very much, especially Dr. Sophie. I tell you, Dr. Sophie is still beside herself that you're not here anymore, you two. Gwen Blacker is watching too. Nice mullet, Lance. Mwah. Thank you, darling. I appreciate that coming from you. You're such a stylish human being who understands where I'm at with my mullet. Just saying.
No argument from me. It's a spectacular mullet.
Thank you.
Worthy of an 80s footballer.
Really?
Absolutely.
I'll let it grow a bit longer and we'll get back to the 70s. I should do a skinhead thing and just start doing Sharpie dances around the place.
Yeah.
Could you imagine?
It'd be a new character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whole new. Lance, what are you looking at?
There was a thing on Fast Forward or something.
Yes, it was. His name was
Magda Sabansky and.
Yeah, but I need to do this because your mic's underneath. There we go. Just help.
That's it. That's exactly right.
Was it Cheryl and Snake or something?
That's something like that. Yeah, Snake sounds right.
Snake's
Cheryl sounds
right.
What was his name? I feel like that might have been.
Yeah, I can't think of his.
Alan. Maybe Alan.
If anybody knows the name of who Snake was in the Sharpie dancing
Pentland? Alan Pentland, maybe?
Maybe. Don't know. Johnny Wombat. Abuse of theatre.
What about it?
I should make more of it. Yeah.
Oh, well, I mean...
You having a go, Johnny?
There's quite a lot of it. I've certainly made enough of it.
You're watching Lance TV and it is time for All Over the Shop. August is festival month and on the 3rd of August, Melbourne North is having the Winterfest 2024 that's at Baroni Park. On the 3rd of August is the Sustainable Fashion Parade at the Goldfields Gothic Festival, and that's at the Goldfields Gothic Festival of Dark Ideas. On the 9th of August, Snowfest Storytime at Warrigal Library. That starts at 10 o'clock. There'll be stories, songs and craft, and suitable for 2 to 5-year-olds. The 17th of August, Bendigo's Flame Festival 2024, and that will be at the Bendigo Showground. There'll be all things fire, performances, all sorts of stuff. The 17th of August is the 3rd annual Gregorian Choir Weekend, and that's at the Stables in Malmesbury, just the other side of Dalesford. There is the Festival of Australian Queer Theatre on the 22nd of August. It's going to be across various venues around Ballarat and not to be missed. On the 7th of September, Ballarat Spoken Word. Featured artist will be Steve Smart, and that'll be at the TBH Studios in the Mall, Ballarat. September 23 is Bisexual Day of Visibility. To all of our bisexual friends who watch this show, we love you, we see you, we adore you. The 29th of September is the Horsham Show. Get along there, there'll be fireworks at 8:30. It's a great family day at the Horsham Agricultural Show. The 9th of October is the Bangarra Dance Theatre in Renmark at the Chaffey Theatre. 9th of October, and that starts at 5:30. The AFLW Pride Round at Whitten Oval, the home of the Western Bulldogs, is happening on the 11th of October from 5 o'clock through to 8 o'clock. The 9th of November is the Creswick Garden Lovers Weekend, and that's part of Creswick Neighbourhood Centre. That's always something that goes off. And the 31st of December is the Dalesford New Year's Eve Parade and Gala. That's on the main drag there on Vincent Street, and that starts at 6 o'clock. And we're back in the studio.
Because in England it's
It
Creswick.
is. We were just talking about the pronunciation of the place Creswick and not, what were you calling it?
Creswick. In England, the original is
Well,
Creswick.
but we're not in England
No,
now,
I know.
darling.
When I walked past it, when
You're
I
here.
first saw it, I was
We're in
like,
Australia now.
I bet you we call it Creswick.
It is Creswick.
Yeah.
Although I made that mistake. I lived in Adelaide for a little while, and because Adelaide's all very, and like the very valley.
Oh, yeah.
And there was this place, and I kept calling it Paraka, and they laughed at me. They went, "It's Paraka." I was like, really went against the vowel sounds.
You get that in Melbourne with Paran too.
Prawn truck, darling.
Yeah.
Prawn.
Paran.
That's prawn, darling. Prawn truck. You hold a PhD
Yes, I do.
in, theatre studies, whatever
Of
that
sorts,
be.
yes.
You made a little post on Facebook today, which I was like, what is this post about? And you just prior to being on the show tonight, you were saying to me that the playwright Ray Lawler has passed away.
Yeah. I don't know if it was today, certainly maybe yesterday. He was 103.
Gosh.
Yeah, 103 years old. Wrote The Summer of the 17th Doll back in 1953. It was produced for the first time in 1955, which means that he was just shy of his 70th anniversary of it. 80th, 70th?
Wow.
I can't remember, the maths is not my thing. But yeah, so incredibly important play for Australian theatre history.
Because he was a prolific writer, wasn't he?
Well,
just worked out that The Summer of the 17th Doll was the one that really hit the mark for like we all, for some reason, we all know, if we don't know it directly through seeing the show, we know it indirectly by, Ray Lawler, Summer of the 17th Doll, got it.
Yeah. It was a groundbreaking play at a specific moment in time in Australian theatre history. So this is around a period of change between, there had been sort of 80 years of this thing called The Firm, or J.C. Williamson's, which was largely commercial theatre, that has a terrible reputation now of being very stuffy, very American and English, no Australian worker, etc., which is not true, but by the end it was kind of what it was like. So the MTC was started by a guy called John Sumner. He was the director there. It was originally called the Union Theatre Repertory Company, which he started at Melbourne Uni, all around the early 50s. And it was a kind of new, in fact, they called it the first wave. They thought of it as the first wave of Australian drama.
Right.
Yeah, which is rubbish because there'd been 150 years worth of Australian theatre beforehand and even more. But this was this kind of new, it coincided with like the Queen coming here for the first time in the 1950s, early 1950s, and a renewed...
we had the Olympics here in 56.
The Olympics were here, there was a renewed kind of Australian nationalism, but because it was the 50s, it was still tied to England, and so the doll goes on stage, and it's the first time in a long time a certain class of Australian had heard an Australian accent on stage, and has seen an Australian story taken seriously, like a kitchen sink drama taken seriously. And so it was a big hit here, and then it travelled to England, and it was a relatively big hit there. And of course, you know what happens when anything Australian goes overseas and it's successful. Oh my God, it's the best thing since sliced bread here, right? It then went to America, didn't do so well, they didn't understand the accents, they didn't understand the references, and it pretty much died over there. But because it had been so well received here and in England, it becomes this groundbreaking moment that sort of crystallises an interest in theatre in Australia, and it's known as being kind of the moment when Australian theatre grows up and becomes like really properly theatre.
We did that also in, I think was it 71 with Picnic at Hanging Rock. That was kind of like that first film where we sort of went, yeah, we can do it too.
Yeah, exactly the same impulse, but just in the theatre.
Yeah, right.
And in fact, out of very similar places, because the funding that sort of supported things like the Union Theatre Repertory Company and Summer of 17th Doll, etc., was all really, really new. It was funded by the Australian Elizabethan Theatre Trust. And then in the 70s, that organisation sort of, in a very roundabout way, morphs into the Australia Council, and that's funding all of the things like the film. In fact, that's why the Australia Council gets going, because it's the beginning of an Australian film industry, because Gorton
because it was John Gray Gorton, which was a liberal, a liberal person at the time, which is why that stuck in my head, because the liberals and arts,
lately certainly
grassroots arts, was a bit unheard of.
But, certainly.
But he leant in and went, no, this is good, we're doing it.
Yeah, there's an interesting story about that as well, because so apart from anything else, what, you just want to go?
Right, you've got probably 40 seconds, go.
Okay, I'm going to say that everybody in the arts tends to think that the funding of the arts in Australia is from Gough Whitlam, and it wasn't. And it wasn't even Gorton either, it was Harold Holt. Harold Holt.
Pig Iron Bob.
No, that's Bob Menzies.
Oh, yeah.
Menzies was not keen on...
just shut up.
Menzies was not keen on funding the arts. But Holt's the one who disappears, when goes swimming and he disappears.
In the submarine. Speaking about disappearing, we have to disappear right now. Thank you so much for being on the show, Dr. Rob.
Well, it's one of those nights tonight.
Yeah, the audience are going off. So between you and I and Dr. Rob, thank you for joining us this evening, and we will see you again next week. You've been watching Let's TV, and remember, if you can be anything, be kind.
Thanks for watching Lance TV. We'll be back same time next week. Lance TV is made possible through funding from the Community Broadcasting Foundation. I'm voiceover guy Randall Smith. See you next time.